There we are. Okay, stop sharing screen. Hey, what's up, guys? All right, Chris will be with us in about 15 minutes, and Joshua the Branch may also be joining us. I'm not accustomed to sharing using StreamYard. I'm only using StreamYard because I'm too poor or cheap, you pick, to use to pay for Zoom, right? So I can zoom it up all day, but I'm StreamYarding if I want to be in charge and such. So this is one of my first StreamYards. It's why I didn't have any of my fancy introductory stuff. I may want to start investing in these things. So anyway, Chris and I have been friends on Weaving Spiders Welcome for some time now, and he and I are the only ones left on the Weave that have that nerd bone, and the Weave is not for the nerd bone like that anymore. So we're doing a nerdy Weave because we like to break down those kinds of secrets. We still like helping talk to people that at the end of the day, like these films, which we can't help but our childhoods are things that grew up on these things. We have an inherent understanding and can translate because we happen to have these childhood things that then we realized were actually far more adult things than we could possibly fathom at the time. And so now here we are. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was hysterical, but it was heavy. It had a heavy thing going. It's like this is gonna be spoilers, right? Like I say spoilers right in the thing. There's also a reason why I don't mention the movie until the end of the title, right? For all those people that don't have attention spans. I want people to understand we're going to be having a metaphysical discussion under the framework of Guardians of the Galaxy. We're not having a movie conversation here. We're not going to be wasting that much time about production notes and stuff, right? There's a lot of things to comment on. There are some things that'll be in that critical drinker territory that'll be worth mentioning because I think that they did something very clever with the High Evolutionary, right? We're going to be talking a great deal about the High Evolutionary as a villain. He is a perfect driving force of this narrative, and we're going to talk about the High Evolutionary as this effective allegory, if you will, like this archetype of the zeitgeist, really, of scientism, right? Of this abusive progressivism, right? It's abusive progressivism is probably a really good way of calling it, right? Because the High Evolutionary is the man of progress, scientific progress, all ends of achievement of that. Um, and I'm trying to keep my juicy floodgates from opening up. I've got some various tabs opened up for my reference points that I want to talk about because we're going to talk about um, a little bit of the legal rulings on genetics because this runs in line with the concept of when is science not science? When is science a crime against humanity? When is it cruelty? When is it potentially slavery? This movie plays all of those cards with all of the appropriate emotional impact for the psychopathy behind it, the sociopathy that is like a sociopath is a very special subgroup of psychopath. The sociopath, if they are, like a high functioning man, high functioning sociopath, right? And when you've got a high functioning sociopath, one who's got, actual talent, right? You'll meet a lot of them that don't have talent. It's scary when you got somebody who probably should have gone to jail for murder when they were like 10 years old, but they're rich, spoiled people that kept them in a fucking like certain kind of world, and despite all of their horribleness, still were geniuses and did all sorts of things to establish that life of work as a genius, right? And it's sweeping up someone of that personality archetype and making them the center of a very desired concept. And anything that has a desire attached to it will have a marketplace. You do not have marketplace without desire. Desire, this is where we start getting into temptations. This is when we start getting into morality allegories. This is when we start asking the questions about God's law, where God's law comes into play. How does the manifestation of God's law happen? And how do you feel about it ultimately, right? There's going to be some heavy empathic notes that are going to be hit because, well, for one thing, you can't ignore the subject because Mantis is an actual superpowered empath. And then you you just have a scene in this film where if you don't fucking cry, I don't think you're human. If you didn't cry in this one scene, then I question your ability to be human. You better convince me that across the board that your excuse, because it was, because theoretically it's all fucking animated. Don't make me like smack you silly because you're not don't lie to me and tell me you're not capable of suspending disbelief in a fucking film. Fuck you. Just because you can suspend disbelief does not mean you're susceptible to mind control. It's an element, but you can bypass that for your own emotional grace. If you've got a strong will, it's just a moment. By the time you're done with it all, you'll be fine. Any changes that happened, you're already fucking aware of it. It's only nefarious if it deliberately tries to hide from you. And because you were aware going into it, you already rejected what wasn't going to work, right? And this is how you keep a lot of fucking suggestive influence off of you, right? This is protective magic that this largely comes from Thunor himself, right? This is, and like this is shit that I must have learned from him, like subconsciously a long time ago because of my sense of boundaries, because of my insufferable mistrust of things to the point of being a fool, to the point to my of my own detriment, because I didn't want to be attached to things that looked like they were going to manipulate me in fascist or collectivist or whatever ways that Just I had a right to say no to that because I'm not fucking doing anything wrong. That's the only thing I ask of the fucking world around me is if I'm doing nothing wrong, leave me alone. That's it. I don't care if everybody acknowledges you as government. That's fine. I get it. It means that nobody's got my back who believes in your authority. Right? Because this is telling this particular kind of galactic story. The galaxy, like in Marvel, seems to be not even a confederacy. It just seems to be a general kind of agreeable thing, right? It's just some sort of agreeable thing that's got some sort of loose associate, like certain planets have very particular alliances, etc., etc. Now Earth plays its part because it is Avengers headquarters. They got all this stuff going on in there, right? All right, so let me see if I got an update here, because it's been about 15 minutes and I am not going to waste this live stream. Okay, I'm done milking the time. I'm starting now. Whew. All right. Let's have at it. So Chris will be along as soon as he can. And hopefully somebody's gonna be fucking interested because I don't got no views right now. That's all right. All right. So I mentioned soul code genetics. Let's start off with the foundational idea this conversation is going to spawn off of. The central theme here is soul code genetics, right? In this plot, Rocket Raccoon's brain has some sort of holy grail type of allegory that is desired by the main villain. And it's like very few people are in the legit business of genetics. Right? And so he's trying to get his hands on that brain to get the genetic material from his brain cells that he needs to figure out why Rocket Raccoon is gifted the way that he is, right? And now Rocket Raccoon is this thing that's gotten away. So I started to realize with this basic premise, how there's effectively a proper Lucifer story here, because you've got Rocket, who has humanity, but also he's got the let's face it, he's a raccoon, right? Raccoons are going to fall under trickster. All right. So trickster element, Mr. Forethought, Mr. Prometheus, right? Rocket often has a certain kind of plan. His plan usually involves I hit a bunch of shit around the area and now I just run around, gather it, and build a gun. Right? He does all this crazy cool stuff like that. Like there's a deep amount of emphasis on how his hands work. Right? You're watching him do his thing, and it looks like a raccoon doing his thing, just moving his. You ever look at raccoons doing their thing like with their hands, right? So this came through. It's this anomaly that this guy doesn't understand, and he wants it for himself and needs it to copy and recreate for the next generation of perfected races that he is developing with his system. Let me see where things are over here. Okay, oops. Hold on a second. Oh, the branches. I am sorry, guys. I'm not even looking at the screen. Let's get my friends. My friends are here. Huzzah. All right, people, get your audio up. Have you been listening? Are you up to speed?
Yes, I am. I'm here. I was listening prior, so
Excellent.
I'm all caught up.
All right, great. All right, Branch, and you?
I just arrived a moment ago, so I have not had the opportunity to listen to the last
All right.
20 minutes.
I just called Rocket Raccoon Lucifer. All right.
He does have the gift of knowledge and superior intellect.
Right. This was something I picked up on, right? Like it's not just that that's what you see in the film. It's also a point that the high evolutionary jumps in yelling at his fucking cohorts about it. And it's just like, what did he do that they don't do? It's like he put it together. He solved the thing. He figured a thing out. How is he figuring things out?
He was like the idiot savant. That was like the one thing he was born to do.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. The high evolutionary likes to make idiots. Look at Adam Warlock, right?
It was what he was
not only meant to be the smartest of the dumbest race of beautiful people in the galaxy, but also supposed to have been a little bit more mature by the time he was hatched.
Yeah, excuse me. That was literally what Rocket Raccoon was born to do, because James Gunn, when he pitched Guardians, he had a sketch, and it's what the poster was, which is Rocket Raccoon figuring out that formula. So that was literally like the first sketch that he had created to show Marvel his idea of what a Guardians movie would be. And then, they ended up using it as promotional art for this one, and it's a version of it is in the movie. And he even said that in his eyes, Rocket Raccoon is the secret protagonist, and it was Marvel's, promotion and the way they do things that made Star-Lord the protagonist.
Right.
So that's interesting. But the reason why I bring that up is because throughout the film you see that Rocket Raccoon has kept the pad that he used to leave the cage. He kept that to the end of the movie, where he comes back and releases all the other raccoons with it, as well as like remembering where he has came from.
Right. He carries this like, it's like a skeleton key of liberation for all under this particular genetic predisposition, if you will, right?
And that is the light that the light bringer brings, right? So that bringing the Lucifer connection. But in this version, since everything is more technological, it's more transhuman,
right?
That it's a digital device.
That's right. Right. Like, because, of course, transhumanism is the absolute center of it. And it's showing you that there's no difference between the conceptualization of merging man with machine and altering genetics so that mankind is a mutation of its former self. And they show you a whole lot of the horrible in a Disney adult styled way, right? This is what, a PG-13 film?
Yeah, honestly, I felt like that scene where they introduced the friends reminded me a lot of Toy Story.
Of Toy Story?
Yeah, the Misfit Toys scene.
Oh, yes. In Sid's better, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
that's emotionally where I went first, right? You know, and like, you know, just especially with the rabbit. Oh my God, the rabbit floor. Oh,
Yeah, and see, honestly, I'll have to say this too because I didn't really introduce myself, but I went with some friends, and it's like a new friend group that I had made, and um, they had already seen all the prior movies. They watch all the Marvel movies. Like
right.
I'm just kind of dabbling in the MCU. I
Ah,
couldn't tell you the difference between a lot of them. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I might
yeah,
enjoy it
like,
when I
like
watch
I
it,
can
but
carry the conversation, and Chris, you'd have to listen.
well, in other words, I wouldn't be good at trivia, you know,
Yeah.
but I kind
Oh,
of know like the
don't
rough.
worry about it. Like I'm not interested in talking about Kevin Feige all night. We're talking
Well,
we're
what I was
talking
gonna
about
say,
Archons and dragons.
well, what I was gonna say is because of that, I think I bring a unique perspective. Having
Yes.
only seen the single third installment, I was actually going into this kind of expecting like a childish type movie.
Right.
So when there's these serious tones of like their friends dying and stuff, I was kind of shook. I was like, what kind of sick
Right.
movie are we watching? Like, because are there kids in the audience? Like, because my friends that I went with, they're like 26, 27. So I just assumed everybody was an adult, you know. But I was wondering, like, wow, how many kids are like seeing this macabre death scene?
Disney's been doing that with Marvel, especially lately, because look at Multiverse of Madness. Look how gruesome that was. But also Multiverse of Madness. Doctor Strange 2. That was Sam Raimi. So that's Evil Dead, and James Gunn, Guardians of the Galaxy, started off with being in trauma films. He was making trauma films.
Oh, okay.
Which, so that's
we're talking about like
so,
I'm shocked the Toxic Avenger didn't just show up at some point, right?
Yeah,
it's like which
so there is a trope then
awesome.
of killing like your favorite characters for shock value or something. Is that like a trope that producers or directors might use?
That's becoming more prevalent with franchises coming back for new movies. Like Star Wars, they did the same thing. Like
with Han Solo and the carbon slab is a good example.
Yeah, well, here's the thing, right? Like they put something very heavy in this film. Like they did it in a way where like it wasn't like it was gorily done. Like there wasn't even that much blood, but you watch the life come out of Otter's eyes, right? You watch her collapse.
Yeah,
you like you can't believe that it doesn't matter that you didn't see blood. You heard the noise, and her behavior was appropriate, and his reaction was the same reaction you're having inside of you.
Now, wasn't this was his significant otter in the movie, right?
It was.
And so it's that too, is he's losing like the love of his life, and and doesn't he have like hallucinations?
These are the only people he knows.
Well, and let me add, when he has his near-death experience, doesn't he have the option of joining Otter in the afterlife, but chooses to come back?
Yeah. She tells him that it's not his time.
No. He wanted to go. They said no, which is in near-death experiences very, very common.
So really, his only purpose wasn't to solve the equation, but he had another purpose that.
Yeah, he's got to lead the Guardians, right? He's now the leader of the Guardians as the film ended, right? But look, none of that's important, right?
Yeah,
I don't want to talk. This movie is a springboard for important things, right?
Yeah,
so
I might
I don't
want
to talk about Rocket Raccoon. I want to talk about what he represents.
Yeah, that's what my next question. I might have missed this, but did you already bring up his number, his experiment number?
No, No, right. So he's got, yes, you had a little bit of a dive on the numerology. I had one or two ideas about it. So the high evolutionary only calls Rocket by his test subject serial number, which is 89P13. And he's got a 13 in there, and the P is used as a designation with Masonic lodges, funny enough, right? And the square and compass, the cube, is very predominant in a lot of the hardware that you see represented in the evolutionaries' corporate properties.
So what's the P? Because I've never really noticed a P in the lodge. What are you? What's
Like
it
P,
referred to?
like I think like P2 Freemasons is the one that I always
Oh,
heard.
okay.
I always
That's,
heard that one dude from Japan who was like the
I think that's in Italy.
Canadian. He always talked
It's
about
like
the
a
P2 Freemasons.
mafia. That's it. Yeah. So I was just curious. So that would be more like the mafia in Italy.
Right, yes. And so I believe 89 was the batch. And so that batch is effectively where he and the otter and the other ones came from. Batch 89. And then P is probably the designation for the raccoons. And then I'm assuming he's the 13th in the litter. That's what I think that serial number means in the film. And then we might be able to draw an association from Chris. What do you got?
I was thinking 80, 89. I was thinking of how this is the last Guardians film, in this trilogy. And the big get with the Guardians was the 80s nostalgia.
Okay.
So they're ending it with the backstory of someone from batch 89, right?
Okay.
So it's like you're watching the last episode of that 70s show, and they ended on New Year's 1979. Like they're ending it right there
Okay. Yeah.
for
Yeah.
a reason.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. What year was Peter Quill abducted? Was it in 89? I don't think so, right?
It was sometime in the 80s, because he had knowledge of 80s culture, and that's why they explained all the 80s nostalgia.
Right. And he had a mixtape. By if it was the 90s, he would have had a Discman.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So I think that is interesting.
Yeah.
And
Now,
then 13.
I know that the late 80s is when the courts started and legislators started doing some funky stuff with the laws involving genetics. Funny enough, this is some of my prepared stuff right now. The reason why this is going on, it's not just what you're looking at in your typical science fiction fantasy, right? I titled this Soul Code Genetics, etc., for a reason, because I am disciplined in the Blue Flame healing arts and occult sciences. Preserving, activating, healing soul code genetics is a very, very key part of that practice. And so this movie was good, and thus an excellent opportunity for me to talk about something that I want this channel to have as a part of its broad array of concepts to explore. So these laws are put into place by servants of this zeitgeist of the high evolutionary that is the archonic genetic engineers that exist here. Now, they don't own your soul, which this movie makes a point of. That's one of the things I want to talk about. It's the genetic ownership, that fine line between your protein compound makeup and you, whether the creator likes it or not. right? The individualized you in this concept that we have free will, that some philosopher will try to unravel your reality, give you an existential crisis, and make you pretend you don't have free will. Which everybody I've ever met who doesn't believe they have free will, they all have insecurity and are having a slow growing mental illness. Everybody I know who has free will is a happy and healthy person, like our Lucifer allegory, who was able to find wholeness in his soul by getting for justice, for whatever that ending they chose to give. Like, they left him on the ship to blow up with the ship, but they didn't want to kill him when they just wanted to, or did they put him on the ship and they just didn't tell us they put him on the ship and put him in a cell? Like, I don't know what the hell they did to the High Evolutionary at the end, because they all right, like I said, spoiler, they didn't kill him. Like, they didn't kill him.
Like most Disney stuff, the villain just vanishes. Yeah, I'm glad that you brought the genetics thing, because when this movie was released, when Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was released, that's when all the news really broke to the mainstream about the strikes. And in Hollywood, the actors and the writers, and there's the special effects and animation strike. There's so many strikes,
Right.
but it all comes down to one thing. Yeah, surface level, you can say, oh, it's Hollywood, it doesn't matter, right? And on one level it does, but if you take a moment to look at it for another second, you'll see that whole situation is all about ethics. It's all about humanitarian ethics. It's an ethical question about AI and how our relationship is with it, and how much involved with it and attached to it we are going to be. And the first entry point, like many things, is going to be through entertainment, through the imagination, right? Through the neurogenics and all that.
And this movie probably stood as something like, I mean, this is a well written movie by and large, right? So like this would be on behalf of the people striking, I would assume, then, right?
Yeah, so
like the thing is, people have not been caring about them because they kind of equate them with the Hollywood message. It's just like, you like, look at the movies you are writing and shoving down our throats and calling us terrible people. We have much more love and respect for ourselves than this, right? Like, this is a new disposition, right?
Yeah, they're wanting.
This is the balanced reaction that we should have had when Hollywood first lost their shit in 2016.
Yeah, if you look at the contracts they're wanting to do, they're wanting to, not only is it they wanting to pay these actors and writers one time and all that, but they're also wanting to buy out, to be sold out their likeness to scan it into AI and use their AI that has been custom to them for all eternity. So any actor or writing style, that they scan, that they can get the data from.
Yeah.
They can live on forever, and you can pump out as many as as they want for all of eternity. And that's where it gets into that ethical question. Is like, we don't want our likeness scanned, and right now it's just Hollywood actors, and but it's going to be coming soon, hopefully not, but it can be coming soon to the population next, through Apple, their stuff. There's already a country that's using AI to solve crimes, and like neurotechnology to solve crimes.
And here's what's interesting is that, like, in this movie itself, there really isn't a presence of AI when I think about it. Right? Like I'm thinking of all the cool, crazy science stuff, but everything was all organically driven.
Yeah,
all
the
in
organic
the primary
planet.
mind from various persons and animals. Right? Like and that's it. Like I don't even think I saw them. Did I see any robots in this movie? No, none. It's like I was watching like something that was operating on like the Dune rules. Like nobody's got a robot, nobody's got like a thinking machine, right?
Yeah.
Is this a different version of that one like rule from Dune? Branch, you did that big Dune drop. Does that feel like we're talking about the law, the imperial law about AI?
I kind of see what you mean about that, but what I see there with this particular movie and that example through that lens, anyway, they were becoming the computers themselves, like the creator, and the raccoon in this case, Rocket. He was nothing more than a computer, essentially. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you in a way. So he's kind of like a mentat, maybe.
Right. We're talking about the high evolutionaries' traits.
But I do think that and what I think is also interesting is you were making some comparisons with the high evolutionary with Lucifer, who is known for his beauty and intelligence.
No. I was making that Lucifer and Rocket. This would make the high evolutionary akin to the tyrannical version of Zeus created by the statists that established the Greek republics.
Well, anyway, the point I was trying to make was that typically we as a people, anyway, associate Lucifer with beauty and intellect. But here in this movie, its ugliness is like the more intelligent something is, the more ugly and abominable it seems to be. So, I mean, as charming as Rocket is, he's an assemblage of, he's like spare parts. You know what I mean? He was one of the misfit reject things, but yet has unparalleled intellect. So I think that is kind of interesting.
He also was built like there was obviously he was built with more care than the others in the batch. It was all like, honestly, the others in the batch were probably afterthought experiments for creating war machines like the ones we see at the end of the film. Right.
Well, actually,
but they also are there for emotional support to keep Rocket sane, because the high evolutionary understands that these creatures are being given human intelligence. If they don't give them somebody social, that they're gonna feel lonely, isolated. They'll have too many psychological issues. I won't be able to manipulate them. Right. So keep them in a tight group of friends with their own little belief system and their ideas of what the high evolutionaries' future plans for them is. This father figure whom all right and wrong is understood through his temperament. Right. We get into this is the Archons. Right. This is him in the role of an Archon. Right. So it's not just that he's like this embodiment of scientism. He's also the embodiment of the authority behind the scientism as well, that has this agenda of basically putting all these etheric implants in us and trying to, own all these different parts of our energy body. Because that's what's happening. Like, this is an etheric story, what's happening to our genetics being shown in the physical manifestation, and that's why they're soul code genetics. Right. What's he always do? Like whenever Rocket says canst, he goes can't. Right. It's just like he can't let him be himself. He can't let him just fucking like be a little improper because it's comfortable. Because what's the stick up your ass all about? Do you still understand what I'm fucking saying? I'm still getting it done. It's still getting it done as fast as you like. Right.
Well, but you got to understand something here too. The high evolutionary is doing that not just he's trying to assert his posturing. He's trying to elevate himself, not just with intellect, but just making rockets small and diminutive in the first place. He's already not a threat in that way. And it wasn't until Rocket displays this superior intellect, he still chooses to destroy him because he can't stand the thought that he exists, right? But I wanted to touch on one other thing.
No, it's not even that. He can stay. He doesn't care that he exists. The only thing he cares about is that for me to okay, I've discovered that that Rocket's got a special brain. That's all I care about, and I don't want the liability of this soul in control of this brain. So I have to kill him because it's the only way I'm going to separate the soul from the mind. So
I think you're giving the guy too much credit there.
So I can take that mind, give it to myself, and then put it into my next test subjects of perfect beings.
Now that would have made more sense, but
that's exactly what he was doing. It was his corporate. His corporate agenda is also his will. Like, he is the corporation. That's why he blows up everybody when he's like, the ship is blowing up and he's like, get me 89P13, right? The black cube of Saturn is literally exploding all around him while he's sitting in the devastated eye of his fucking pyramid. It's all there, and it's the square and compass because of its position. And it's blowing up. Everybody that's working for him is going to die, and they've been loyal this whole time. They have to mutiny, and then he just blows everyone up with a gravity pulse, and takes over and tells all the peons just destroy everybody and bring me the raccoon's brain unharmed. And that's it, right? Because that's it. Because his corporation can keep going. He's got shit in the orgosphere to back him up. Like, he'll be fine. He just needs that raccoon because he's the high evolutionary. He's the Ubermensch. God is dead, so he stepped in. It's very Nietzschean what they did. Like straight up, he said, God died. Go after, just attack that dead God because nowhere shows up to join the fight, right? So, like, the old gods are returning. This god looks like it has one eye because the other eye has been fashioned into a cannon. So and Odin died in Thor 3. So it's like Odin is there. It's kind of cool. God's law being enforced, and that's what you're watching, because this guy, this psychopath, is the corporation. If it's what the corporation wants, it's what he wants, because there's no distinguished difference. He has all the codes except for 89P13's code.
Yeah, bringing us that makes me think of a question I was going to have for you. Z brought up just now the nowhere, the head of a dead god, and they use it as a base, but they also use it to kind of fly around a little bit. And so they're little people in the head.
Right.
They are Jiminy Cricket.
It's a Ravager's.
So that gets
it's
this more of a homunculus.
It's Pirates of the Caribbean in space.
And so I wanted to see with the you talk about homunculus a lot, so I wanted to see like the conscience and being like conscience about like what's right and wrong. What did you think about that symbolism?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
What's up? What do you got?
So, so the floating head, for me, when I saw that, I thought of Baphomet, which is the definition of a floating head. It's not really a goat of Mendes. It's actually its first iteration is a floating head, which we find this in the Nordic traditions with Odin taking Mimir's head, I think it is, and preserving it with herbs and such, and then doing some type of magic or sit here to animate it. And then it dispenses wisdom and things like that. Well, in this, we see that had Baphomet having one eye, which my own personal experience with the Baphomet, I've dreamed of it before, and it was a head floating in darkness with one red eye. That's exactly what was in the movie. But anyway, what I thought was interesting is that they only had one warhead in it, and they used it to destroy that the base of the guy, the high evolutionary.
Yeah.
So it was like a one punch man. You know, they had one shot, but it's all that they needed. You know, it was like mega powerful.
Well, you know, like you're moving a whole city, right? It's natural.
It was a planet. It was a planet.
It's a planet. Well, it's the head of a giant dead celestial, right? So it's
oh, I see. I did not know that.
It's more like it's more like a moon. It's a big satellite.
Right? Well, wait a second. So does this connect to the that one? I didn't get to see it, but the one with there was people with superpowers, and there was these creatures that were coming out, and they were fighting the immortals. Is it connected to that?
It's a celestial. They're called celestials. They're the beings that created the universe.
But they showed up in the immortals, right?
Yeah, they showed up in the immortals.
The celestial, they had to defeat their own creator.
So is the head of one of those that they were floating around in?
Yeah, his name was Nowhere.
Yeah, there's been a couple of celestials. Like, for one thing, Peter Quill is half celestial because Ego is his father, who was a celestial until he died. You know, then there's whatever celestial the head of Nowhere is. Then there was the celestial of the immortals, and I believe the Fantastic Four gets introduced into the Marvel MCU. Galactus will be a celestial. That makes sense.
There was a baby celestial sticking out of the Earth's core right now in the MCU. Because
it's also if the Immortals is still canon, because God, that movie was cringe. I was not invested in that love scene whatsoever.
Well,
anyway, let's
that
in.
Yeah, that brings me to something that I wanted to ask you guys about, because that's what I thought with this theme of souls and consciousness and creators. I think a lot, and kind of seeing the macro microcosms of all the little pieces of it all. I was wondering if this is their way of kind of a very roundabout, very lazy way of showing people this idea of the living cosmos, this electric universe theory. You know, having the Earth be an egg, and now in Guardians have them using Nowhere and having a high evolutionary. We're getting to these bigger macrocosm concepts, and it keeps going out and out. So that's something that did cross my mind, that it was kind of a soft way of like showing a little bit of details of this cosmic egg electric universe sort of an idea.
Maybe. I think if they were going to do the electric universe theory, then like space wouldn't behave the way they're making space behave, because space has been behaving the way it's been since the dawn of our imagination of space, which is this void space that doesn't necessarily
not the dawn of our imagination of space since the writing of Star Wars.
Well, right. Like, the thing is, we can't, if we're going to say outer space, it has to be all these different assumptions of public agreement, unless you are making a movie from scratch that is introducing a new concept of what space could be. Because you got to remember, there was a point where space was introduced as a concept. Maybe it was H.G. Wells. I don't remember who it was that went in and started talking about, like, oh, what it's really like once we get above our ability breathe up there, you know, when we're getting closer to this place that the gods we know are not, right? There's you know, this void place where there is no heaven that we call the heavens, and then it's nothing like heaven because it's the black, right?
Yeah.
You
And
know, it's more like the underworld up there.
yeah, and the other thing I wanted to ask you guys about was with Gamora. I thought her storyline, since this isn't the same version from the other Guardians of the Galaxy movies, this is one from an earlier point of her timeline that's been plucked and placed into this timeline because of Avengers Endgame.
Right.
And she was the Soul Stone sacrifice, but also since she's kind of been plugged and placed in this timeline, and you have the dissonance between like her and the other characters, like her and Quill, and her and Star Lord, and even like her and Groot, because she was kind of like a surrogate mother to Groot, and now she's not motherly to him when they meet up again. So to me, that reminded me a lot of like a walk-in, of when you have these ideas of like a second soul or switching out of souls, or these kind of concepts, and then when they go on, they don't have the feelings.
It's like you're meeting the Mandela effect version of your ex. You know, because as far as she's concerned, it's a false memory, and we've lost Chris. I think Chris had to disconnect for a second because that looked like he hung up. All right, we'll be back on that one. I had something I wanted to respond to Chris about in there. Yeah, the walk-in thing is precisely what I think she's representing, right?
Now, why was she sacrificed? Just in case somebody doesn't know, I'm not sure.
I believe because they had to reclaim the Soul Stone again.
Soul Stone.
Yeah, because you see, the soul. All right, in Avengers Infinity War, when Thanos gets the Soul Stone, he no. When the Soul Stone is attained in Infinity War,
it requires a sacrifice.
It requires a sacrifice. Was it Gamora that was sacrificed by Thanos? Was that it?
Yeah, because it's his daughter, right?
I think that's right. That's what it is. Yes. So Gamora, that's what it is. Gamora was sacrificed because it was going to be either. Okay, hold on a second. Chris is back. All right, Chris. We were me and the branch were. I was just trying to remember for the branch's sake and anybody who didn't see the other film, because we're just trying to get the continuity of her soul correct. She was Thanos' sacrifice to get the Soul Stone, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, now I know what's going on. All right, now I remember. Yes, and so when the Avengers went back in time to get the stones before Thanos gets the stones, effectively, they've gone back in time to where Gamora is still alive. That Gamora gets wrapped up in this fight, and this is a pre-Guardians of the Galaxy 1 fight, meaning that she's got nothing to do with saving the galaxy on that timeline. Her soul was not destined to be a part of the Infinity War, right? So she has a completely different relationship to literally everything that has happened in the MCU than she did prior. She's never met the Avengers.
Is that kind of like, and I didn't get to see this either, but the Loki movie had the different branches of time. So would that kind of be what's going on here?
The Loki TV show, which was by and large, it was decent. I'm excited to see if they spice it up with season 2. That is how they're introducing the next time they get around to a proper Avengers film, they're going to be doing Kang the Conqueror, who is a Time Lord. He is many selves across every possibility of every dimension of every timeline, right? And so we've already seen Kang destroyed once in the Loki series. We saw him destroyed a different Kang, but the same Kang, destroyed in Quantum Mania, the Ant-Man and trilogy. And that's it. What I do find really funny is that we just had the High Evolutionary, who is who is an excellent black actor in a purple suit, and then we have Kang the Conqueror, an excellent black actor in a purple suit, and they're both supervillains. I find it funny.
Well, I mean, I don't think it'll be the same actor as Kang because there was that lawsuit against the actor that played Kang previously. And so I think I think his reputation is maybe too much for Disney's brand. Disney like
they're gonna they're going to change Kang out now.
Most likely because Disney likes their squeaky clean actors.
They're full of shit. They're full of shit. No, they don't. No, they don't.
Their appearance is, anyways.
Oh, the parents care now. Oh, I see. James Gunn. Let's not ignore the elephant in the room, right? I'm assuming that James Gunn. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt because it's odd tweets, and these people are what they are. They're still talented people, whatever. I don't know if he's done the things that he's suspected of doing because of strange tweets, I guess, right? And it took a whole legal war, socio-political war to put him back on the bill. It had to be him. They couldn't possibly make a Guardians film that was going to make any sense to the rest of the others without him. I can't run around and play the accuser like Ronan all day. So let's acknowledge that it's possible, but let's also acknowledge that if we were sitting in the justice seat, if we were sitting in the throne of the 11 card, passing judgment down on the situations of this hermit and his fated rind upon the wheel, would you be able to convict? Would you be able to, beyond a shadow of a doubt, declare guilty? No, you really fucking couldn't.
Let's not pass judgment. We should pass the weave to Brains and see what he's got to weave.
But the thing is that with the exception of James Gunn, all these other monsters was see no evil, hear no evil, right? Like, why James Gunn, who has the least amount of evidence and accusations amongst other creeps in the system, who probably out of desperate moves to save their personal selves from being exposed for what they did, had to take Hollywood in the gutter with them until Hollywood maybe is about to make the decision to shove them off and pick up their shattered remains. Jay Widener thinks by 2026 or something, or 8, that Hollywood will be bankrupt or something, and it won't exist anymore. That was a pretty interesting statement. It sounded like he knew what he was talking about.
Yeah, I mean, that's why a lot of actors, or not actors, directors have said, like the older ones, like your Quentin Tarantino's, your Martin Scorsese's. And what they mean by that is not that there's not going to be any movies being made anymore. It's just the golden age of Hollywood is where the magical land that all these ideas are coming from. isn't
Right.
going to be around.
They don't have the trust of the actual talent. The actual talent, the ones that like, because you're sitting there, you want to get involved with Hollywood, and then but you're also paying attention to what's going on with everybody talking about what's happening in Hollywood, and then you see a lot of what's happening in Hollywood, and you're like, the risk reward and me needing to live in this area, it ain't worth it, right? And people are walking away from dreams, because the horror show, they're realizing that like my life will be terrible just to look good on the big screen, right? Because Hollywood can't offer you what it could before, right? Unless you're just really, really weird, right? It's just like, if and a lot of, and that's too many people that they don't want to become this woke thing, right? And so that's part and parcel of it, right? And let me explain something, right? This kind of social manipulation is also part and parcel of what the high evolutionary does, right? Like, this is the dark sorcery coming down. And this stuff is epigenetics, right? This is getting you to participate in certain social functions and certain behaviors and intake in certain substances. All this to influence upon your gene code when it writes its next script, which then, when for the man, he produces his next batch, that his line, if he were to produce a daughter or son, that line would pick up certain traits from those toxins ingested that are going to give a certain result for what the real high evolutionary wants to do with us, feeding us all these GMOs and wanting to put all this experimental gene therapies into our needled medicines and such.
May I please interject? No
Yes.
pun intended.
Go ahead.
Actually, that was a good pun. So I do agree with you on that, but the point I wanted to make earlier was kind of related to this. He is exposing these creatures, his creations, to a certain chemical or drug, and when they're exposed to it, some of them either become hyper intellectual and peaceful, or incredibly aggressive, and he has to like put them down. So what kind of makes Rocket unique in this regard is that he didn't become rabid, which is kind of how raccoons are normally associated with rabies and stuff. But he went against his own nature in a sense. Like, maybe he should have become aggressive and stuff like that, but didn't. And that's kind of what he was looking for with this equation. Was he was trying to make the new creations not aggressive. He was trying to perfect them. So it almost suggests, like you're saying, like the epigenetics, the cultivation of these genetic creatures, he didn't want them to be aggressive. And it seems to be kind of like what God, whatever faith you're in, regardless, it's kind of a thing, like, it's like, well, if you're going to bite the hand that feeds, then we're going to have to put you down, so I think it's kind of an interesting element there, is like, you really can't enjoy the intelligence without peace, with all this just kill, well, nothing would ever really thrive or be built,
On that topic, Rance, what did with that line of thinking, what did you think about how Rocket didn't want to he didn't want to identify, he didn't want to be called, he didn't want to acknowledge that he was a raccoon, right? He didn't like that word. He didn't want to own that side of him, and until the end of the movie, where he makes amends with, I am a raccoon, I am a child of God, sort of thing.
Well, or just simply, I am. Like he's the voice in his head, not the raccoon body that he's trapped in, right? So I've actually had a little short weave on raccoon too.
Well, he's not trapped in a raccoon body either. He's a raccoon. He's a raccoon that's been tampered with.
Well, I mean, I was being
It's like he's not
figurative.
Like right. It's like he's not like
But he had an ego, which is not is foreign to a raccoon. We would assume they don't have that higher level of intellect that we, they're smart, obviously, but they don't know that they're I am rocket. They're raccoon.
He was given, he was given the gift, and through the dark means.
Well, and I will say that in that way, the high evolutionary is in his way kind of like Lucifer, because he give the gift of reason to the raccoon, which is kind of what the serpent in the garden did to us, or Prometheus did in the,
okay, so right,
the gift of intellect, right?
Yeah. Well, I'll say this much. I think it's the gravest of mistakes to equate the message of the serpent in the garden with the gifts of Lucifer, right? Lucifer took a big hit out of something that he did out of a love for humanity, to give humanity a fighting chance from the barren, wild elements that fire and continued invention will protect them from. He was a great lover of humanity as such. That's not what the high evolutionary is to any of his creations, as you see.
No.
However, Satan is still a liar. Satan told a half-truth that made things worse. He knew that Adam and Eve were not going to die, yes, and showed that Yahweh was lying to them. He did not tell them to be prepared to deal with the wrath of Yahweh, something you've never heard of before. You don't even know it. You're naive. You've never disobeyed a word of the Creator. You've never made him mispleased, right? He never, like, the snake didn't warn him about any of that, from him over there on the snake side, who gets to fucking hang out with Yahweh and knows what he's like and everything else, right? The snake set you up. The snake sets you up. He's still an agent of this guy, right? That's why when the Bible switched from Elohim to specifically Yahweh, they were getting nitty-gritty and narrowing things down to one particular God within a pantheon, who the religiousization to serve the Archons, the imposter sky gods, came in and wrote that script that way, to say that this is what God is actually like.
Well, I think there's a reason for that too, because among those, they did rank themselves. And so the Most High, essentially, the way I understand it, is Yahweh killed all the other gods off, because, for whatever reason. I mean, he had his reasons, whether we agree with them or not.
That's effectively correct.
To assert his dominance.
Yeah.
His wrath, as you mentioned.
This is all after what I said happened, right? Because Yahweh goes back to pagan times. There was a genuine pagan Yahweh that my little prayer unto the higher force is that the Jews find the pagan, the heathen Yahweh, who will make them a strong and dignified people like everybody else with their gods. Right?
Oh, are you suggesting a connection between
somewhere? I know it.
So you think they're all Proto-Indo-European? That's interesting. I kind of felt that way too.
Well, it depends on what we're talking about.
Roughly speaking, yeah.
Well,
or at least the tribe of Dan, anyway.
Well, the tribe of, there's so many different questions about all these different things like that, and like at the end of the day, I'm still more along the lines of there's a little bit of history in the Bible, but it's really more running along mythological allegory. And of course, because astrology is real, often you may see things that are going to correlate to that happened in history, and you can piece it together because events happened there that were in a particular star alignment that was also appropriately a star alignment understood in the interpretation of the Bible by an astrologer who understood what the sky markings meant in their secret language, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the thing that everybody misses who doesn't get into deeper astrology, is that, you know, there's a reason why we interchangeably say the Big Dipper or Ursa Major, because it's only the Big Dipper if you take out like half of the stars in that region that also makes up that greater form of a bear shape, right? And you add in more of those stars, and then there's other constellations that you can change up their meanings altogether, because you know, you're drawing with almost completely different stars in that area, and it's, you know, and one thing's a wall and then another thing's a blanket in a different mythos, and you know, it's all these different little aspects like that. In Norse mythos, Gemini is the eyes of Thiazi, right? And it's associated with a giant that was slain by the gods, and Odin threw his eyes up in the sky, and as opposed to your atypical story about magical twins.
What giant or constellation was that again? Yeah,
Gemini as Thiazi.
Gemini.
Yeah,
Okay.
Gemini is known as the eyes of Thiazi in heathenry, in the northern chart system.
Do you know what constellation Corona? There's two Coronas. There's Southern and Northern Borealis. One's right at the top of Serpents. The Serpents constellation has Corona Borealis, which is the northern crown. I wanted to weave on that real quick because raccoon is like an anagram for Corona, which is the crown chakra. So I think a lot of this intellect thing, there could be a connection here between the intellect and the crown chakra, Corona, raccoon, which is something that kind of came up for me.
What color was his spacesuit? Because they had colored spacesuits. Was Rocket's the color of the crown chakra?
Rocket didn't have a spacesuit. He was dying on the ship.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But so where I kind of ran across that weave first was when I was looking into Resident Evil, because it's Raccoon City where this virus outbreak occurs. So I kind of always wondered about the term raccoon and Corona.
Well, it probably would have been purple, because purple was the only color, because James Gunn did the colors of the Affinity Stones as their suit colors.
Oh, that's clever.
The idea.
Except it wasn't a pride thing.
And there was one person shy to doing all the Infinity Stones.
Okay.
So I don't remember there being a purple, besides the High Evolutionary. I don't remember them having a purple spacesuit. And there was a purple stone. So if Rocket did have a spacesuit, maybe his would have been the...
Which stone was the purple stone? Which stone was the soul stone?
Red was the soul stone, I think.
Red was...
I thought red was the power stone, because that was Thor the Dark World.
No.
Oh, maybe you're right.
No, I think, was red the time stone? I mean...
the time stone was the Eye of Amagado, which was green.
But yeah, the crown would be purple, I think, in most cases.
Well, the third eye is purple. The crown is violet. Well, it has to specifically be violet.
Those are the same color.
The third eye is purple.
But I would even just say gold. really, because the crown is typically gold, you know.
Gold is the solar plexus, though. Yellow, really.
Yeah. I mean, but
Right.
gold is yellow.
I am. Yeah. No. I get it.
Or
But also,
electrum
They
or
are
something.
ordered as the rainbow, as the visual spectrum.
But the whole point about the crown is that it's the halo too. So when you see a halo, it's usually depicted as like a ring of white light, which is all the colors. So maybe crown is actually all of the others combined, which I think kind of makes sense.
Maybe, but I think that that's a little bit too much in the like. I don't want to get into too much color code decrypting of suits. That's that doesn't really, I think, serve
It was
higher purpose.
was,
But I did want to say here,
purple
now
was
that
the
we're on the
purple was
subject,
the power stone. Purple was the power stone.
it
Red
doesn't
was
matter. It doesn't.
red was the reality stone.
Only the soul
The
stone.
soul stone. The soul stone was the orange one.
Orange.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So those are the ones we were thinking about.
All right. Great. All right. Orange. Well, either way, I did want to bring up the point about the soul stone, though, right? Is that the soul stone actually was thematically present throughout this film in particular. Peter Quill does this whole monologue as part of his way he emotionally manipulates people as a thief. And he's talking about like he doesn't understand the science of how the soul stone works. All he knows is that his girlfriend is dead and his girlfriend is back, and from a time where they never met, and it's breaking his heart. All right. And so they make this whole big to do about the soul stone right there. And then you've got all of these things just about the question of the human soul throughout the whole thing, right? You have the near-death experience that Rocket experiences towards the end. You've got this issue where Rocket's special ability that is in his brain that the high evolutionary wants, he didn't put it there, right? And he meticulously goes over these details. He's very anal retentive OCD about these things because this is exactly what his purpose, his desire, his single-minded desire is to do this kind of stuff. This is what he's not a complete psychopath because this stuff makes him excited and happy, right? But he's just he's a sociopath because he cuts it off from everything except for his own selfish fulfillments. So then, hold on a second. And so he kind of is like, because psychopaths are soulless. They're actually like, you have to go through painful lengths to figure out if someone's a psychopath just because they were uncaring towards you one time, or just to you in particular, doesn't make them a psychopath, right? They have to be uncaring towards the world itself, right? And to determine that and to see if they actually act accordingly in a horrific manner, and all these other things, it's very hard to deal with that because and they do that, right? A lot of superheroes, they'll give them psychopaths because psychopaths are hard for superheroes to initially deal with because they're good at hiding it and not letting you know that they've done such horrible things where that they would have every right to destroy them, right? And
So is
so
that like Ozymandias or whatever? That'd be a good example.
Ozymandias, not, I don't like, honestly, like Ozymandias,
I mean, from the Watchmen.
His character made this sacrifice, but it's not that he didn't care, but like, because there was a literal greater good, right? He believes that nuclear war was going to wipe out like 90% of life on Earth. He said, if I wipe out 10% of life on Earth, it'll stop the loss of the other 80% of life on Earth, and we can rebuild. And it was a solemn thing. He wasn't grateful, like, I just killed a bunch of mouth breathers. These are people that he valued. He killed, like, like when he destroyed those scientists, but it was like remorseful. It was like, thank you, but like, you can't talk because I'm committing a giant war crime, and the only thing that matters is that I execute it, right? And that's why he did the monologue in the movie, because it was already done, right? He monologued it because nothing could stop it, and he was at peace with being personally stopped at that point, because one way or the other, the plan for everybody to stop fighting each other, unified under the threat of believing that Dr. Manhattan is a monster, is all people need.
Hey, Chris, did you have anything to add to the monster, like a Frankenstein, I guess is what you're getting at? Frankenstein's monster, excuse me.
Yeah, that I'm glad that you brought that up, because again, going back to kind of how I hinted earlier when I brought up the special word, the homunculus, the homunculi. This is, it's becoming a more and more common theme as our technology, as our knowledge expands and goes off more and more. The story of Dr. Frankenstein, of the golem, of the homunculus keeps on kind of, becoming more and more relevant. And maybe it has always been, but we're just now, thinking about it more in the last, 100 years than we have, or maybe maybe it's just me. Yeah, definitely seeing it more and more, and so to have this character, the High Evolutionary, do these, have these experiments, and he's the way he's acted as like a child, like he's very, I guess you'd say, more like talking about psychology, more like a boyish psychology. He's not really a man. He's like a boy playing with his toys, right? And so you're getting this adolescence type of Dr. Frankenstein, mad scientist character.
Sid.
Yeah, and just tinkering with all his little toys, with his subjects, and so I definitely saw that Dr. Frankenstein, mad scientist motif really shine through, and that is kind of, that parallels, trying to play creator, trying to play God, instead of communing with the creator, communing with God, communing with Odin, and stepping into that role. You're trying to do it in a roundabout way, in an aggressive way, through technology, through these, and you become something else, and you lose the ethical, conscience, humanitarian, part of yourself, the spiritual part of yourself. And the last thing that I wanted to add to this was, we see that that planet that's all organic tech, and
Oh yeah,
that Guardians from these sci-fi things, they're cyberpunk, right? But there was a different genre called solar punk, and the whole idea of solar punk is organic technology. So, and that whole planet, that organic technology, is all is supposed to be gross and weird, and like the whole. That's where James Gunn's background in trauma films really shine through, because it was very much like, it felt like a trauma film when they was on that organic tech planet,
Well,
And
that would explain that the like I hated some of the suits, like those armored suits in the Orgosphere. I thought were garbage. They were like big, like bouncy fat guy suit looking things.
yeah, and yeah, they were
Like
supposed to.
who designed this wardrobe? These are
And
terrible.
I think it's to kind of make us kind of laugh at this
Right.
idea of harmonic technology
Yeah.
and kind of be like, well, cyberpunk is cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Cyberpunk is cool, you know,
And,
because
you know, and
cyberpunk
here
is all
once again, right?
transhumanism.
Like this Orgosphere is a giant organism, but it's a completely like unconscious. It's like not even an animal. It's just functional organic material, right? So that makes sense and you get it. But also, it's like it doesn't have a brain, right? There's like here's another like example of a lack of AI. It's just like you would imagine, well, why didn't they put an AI on the Orgosphere? Right? Why is it all basic computers and not any thinking machines?
They did put AI on it. They had eyes as their cameras.
That's not AI though. That's literally just optic nerves.
That's AI though. That's AI.
No, because all it's doing is going to a screen, and then an actual person sitting at a console is making judgments and pushing buttons and deciding things and giving orders and such, right? That's not AI at all. It's just that's just a security camera using organic material. It's just somebody grew an eyeball instead of building a camera
It's
and ran the optic
an
nerve all the way to the
eye.
central unit.
It's an eye. It's a eye. It's a eyeball.
Oh, you're making a pun.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's funny.
I caught it.
That's AI.
You gonna correct his grammar like the high
See-
evolutionary? It's
Look.
an I, Chris, not an AI.
See, if I could see you on camera, then maybe I would have seen some sort of laugh or facial jet or an hand. Like I can't see you, so like I can only assume when you're being sarcastic or punning.
Yeah. I'm setting in blue hour now, so
Sure.
the sun has gone down.
Gotcha.
Can I bring up a topic real quick? Because I don't know if we'll organically come to it. There's a good pun. So Guardians of the Galaxy is an acronym. Well, actually, it's not an acronym. It's an abbreviation. Well, I guess it would be an acronym. Anyway, GOG. So GOG is a topic in the Bible. And what I think is very interesting about GOG is it's a multitudinous amalgamation of peoples. Just like in Guardians of the Galaxy, it's not just one race or anything like that. It's a plethora of, I mean, the humans actually the minority in this.
No, they're all minorities. Every single one of them is a different kind of thing.
But I think that is GOG, is in a sense, in essence.
Okay, all right.
Thought that was kind of interesting. I didn't know if I'd get to point that out or not.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. But that's one of the things I did want to say. Like Guardians of the Galaxy, they're kind of representative of like a
The misfits.
They're not they happen to be misfits, but as far as the things that they represent beyond the misfit nature of them, which is just them being themselves, really, is
we're like the mutants.
Raccoon is an archetype of the animal kingdom. Groot is an archetype of the plant kingdom. Mantis is an archetype of the insect kingdom. Of course, Star-Lord is the humans. Drax is kind of like the divine masculine, if you would say, right? And then Gamora is kind of like the Amazonian, the badass woman, like Thor and Jarnaxa. Yeah, a lot of people don't know Jarnaxa. Jarnaxa is one of Thor's concubines, one of Thor's 3 children. One of his boys is a product of him and her. Her name means the knife hand, as in she's a vicious bitch. And then you have the victims of transhumanism with Nebula.
So which hand is the knife held in? Is it Dexter or Sinister?
It doesn't say in the Eddas, to my knowledge. I don't think it's mentioned which hand she holds the knife in. It's probably all of them.
Well, I would just assume it's the left, because
it's the idea that she can fight for herself, right? It's the knife. It's not the sword hand, the spear hand, the axe hand, the hammer hand. It's a knife hand. It's a small blade, right? It means, you know, it's that fierce woman. It's the fierce woman, right?
Yeah, and
it's not Thor's wife, but it is a female energy that loves Thor.
Yeah, and between Nebula and Gamora, you have one that was praised by Thanos and one that was just experimented on and tortured by Thanos.
Well, but you got to realize, though, only favored because he was going to sacrifice her.
Yeah.
As like the sacrificial lamb. So really, was it worth it being the favorite?
Yeah, but no, you do have to understand, because the soul gem, you like you have to love in order to use the soul gem. Thanos is a monster, but not exactly a psychopath. And he would not have gotten the soul gem if he did not throw someone he loves over the cliff.
Well, how different is that from the demiurge having the Messiah?
Because it's not the laws of the soul gem.
I think it's
not the laws. It's not the very principles of the soul itself as such. Don't take the Gnostics too damn literally. There is a demiurge. I
still think it's a valid point, because
the Gnostics are wrong about how much authority this creature has over your soul.
Well, that aside, Yahweh, whatever you want to call it, the God of this world, so to speak, did send a creature of his to die, kind of like Balder the Beautiful, right? So I think there has to be this
is pretty beautiful.
There has to be this hard edge to whoever's occupying that most high position, and so they have to have that soft spot, or they lose their humanity, like we were talking about earlier, with the human going to too far of an intellectual capacity would lose their connection to humanity. So in this way, it's like, well, if God didn't have this Gamora type, person, then they would lose that connection, you know what I mean, to humanity or whatever it might be. So Gamora is kind of like his only connection, or otherwise he would risk becoming that psychopathic entity, Thanatos in this regard. I mean, just because we were talking about him, I was just using him as an example.
Right, exactly. And I think that with what you're seeing done with characters like the High Evolutionary, maybe even with Kang and everything else, like these are characters that would never be capable of using the Soul Stone, right? The Soul Stone is the only one that comes with a price.
It's very much like the Philosopher's Stone. It has secret ingredients.
Yeah, exactly. It is that. That's what they're doing. That is what they're doing, which is why the whole homunculus thing is appropriate, right? It's an appropriate matter of discussion with this topic, because genetics. The homunculus it's weird alchemy, it's genetics, it's vivisection, it's all these different things, and we see all of that in this film.
I didn't bring this up earlier, but earlier, Z, when you said that Rocket is just basically made up of a bunch of different parts, it made me think of how in Avengers Infinity or Avengers Endgame, I mean, he was obsessed with trying to get the Winter Soldier's arm, his robotic arm, and he's like, I'm gonna get that arm one day. And right right before Guardians 3 happened, James Gunn directed a Christmas special as like a Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special for Disney Plus. There was a semi-parody of the Star Wars Christmas special, and in that special, Nebula goes to Earth and rips Winter Soldier's arm off as he's sleeping, and then wraps it up and gives it to Rocket. And so he's literally finally got his arm, that piece of the arm. So you're saying you see throughout even though Quill is the scavenger, member, whatever, ex-member, whatever you want to call him, it's Rocket who really scavenges through wreckage and pieces for his inventions that we see. And so, that is kind of like it's in him. If we're saying that he is a bunch of pieces himself, so that's why he's in love with collecting all these pieces. It's a reflection of
right
of his own creation.
Right, exactly, right. And it's like it's like to write a character for a film is like to say, do I have all the elements here of a cohesive soul that you understand as this personality, as this person brings it to life, right? And the film does, like many films have done before, it's nice to see it done on this kind of a superhero movie level. You usually have to watch some sort of, like super drama or something to be talking about soul expressions, in this particular way. And so that's like, my point is that like that's what the thing is that they're doing that's kind of making these post Thanos villains interesting, is that you're looking at characters that by and large didn't come from any level of being capable of meaningful human connection other than the interests of service to self, right? And this is where the carte blanche of the unethical comes in, and this happens more often than we like to admit sometimes. I want to do. I've been waiting to do a little bit of a screen share here. I'm going to show. Where are we? It's was it this one? Oh, okay. I can do different tabs. All right. So stuff like this exists in our world, right? This is the National Human Genome Research Institute. This is a .gov. In June of 2013, the Supreme Court determined that DNA in its natural form cannot be patented. So if I understand that, I believe that way before 2013, the Supreme Court said that engineerable DNA could be. So I guess this has amended that in some way, shape, or form, because I was only aware that sometime I thought in the late 80s, around the same time they changed the laws about what you put in a vaccine. That's when vaccines started to go sideways before they went 2020 sideways. The earliest genetic patents were issued in 1982 following the U.S. Supreme Court case of Diamond versus Chakrabarty, which opened the door to patenting biotechnology discoveries. Since then, the core of the debate over gene patents has been whether or not the discovery of a gene or sequence of DNA rises to the level of invention required by Title 35 of the United States Code, which lays out the criteria that must be satisfied for a patent to be granted. According to the code, a patent may only be granted on any new and useful process, machine, manufacture, or composition of matter, or any new and useful improvement thereof. Laws of nature, natural phenomenon, and abstract ideas cannot be patented. Even if this first hurdle is passed, the invention must be novel. The existence of prior art shows that someone else invented it first, of course. Also, the invention cannot be obvious to a person having ordinary skill in the art to which said subject matter pertains. So there's a lot that gets said about this, but I'm gonna just hit let's see, over here. Over the years that this debate has occurred, there have been concerns that large numbers of patents associated with the human genome would limit the integration of genomic medicine into healthcare because of either restrictive patents or prohibitive costs. Diagnostic tests or on patented genes cannot be invented around, as is possible with other patents. This is because the actual DNA sequence to be tested is claimed in the patent, not the method of analyzing the gene to determine its sequence, and so only the patent holder or their licensees have the right to sequence that DNA during the patent's life. So these are just small excerpts of the government's understanding of the enforcement of law as the Supreme Court has amended certain things in respects to that law. Now, if I can, let's go back over here to whoops. Let me hear that. Shoot that again. All right. So etheric implants. I'm going to use this site, which seems like it's fine by me in my information, called the miashinu.com. And they have a little article here written in 2017 about etheric implants. So this will give us a little bit of an idea. There's a tremendous amount of details and a lot more to be known. And there's the best sources I know on etheric implants are Solaris Blue Raven. I don't talk about her much anymore. She's one of my witchy friends from back in the day. Seth Gizboza with Black Earth Productions, and Indigo Angel. They're some of the best people I've heard talking about this kind of stuff. Oh, as well as Sean Bond. Sean Bond's Psionic League. Shout out, Sean. So etheric implants are essentially small energy devices that aren't able to be seen by the naked eye and are placed energetically in your auric field or different areas of your energy bodies. However, I have also experienced them in other forms than devices such as eggs, venom-like energy, and there was one a while back that was going around that was in the form of small worm-like things. Most cases, they are devices. However, implants seem to evolve and change over time. Etheric implants, I'd say, have the main objective of lowering your energy frequency to keep you in a lower state of consciousness. Implants are generally easy to remove as well. Yeah, that's like there's a lot of new age healers. Some of them are actually very, very good at this, even if you wouldn't want to go down all of their paths of beliefs. They do have proper techniques for removing these kinds of implants and stuff, right? These implants are there to change certain things within you, to make you change your behavior, to keep you in different kinds of moods and such, and have different kinds of activities you can and can't do because of when these things activate, and thus trying to manipulate your epigenetics and guide your personal behavior. Like imagine if I had an implant in me, and then every time I started to jog, I'd get lethargic within 2 minutes. I'm never going to burn any calories that way. I would not have become who I am now. Right. So, that's one reason why you want to go and get the energy work done, to have these things taken care of, because you're never going to take control of your personal immediate genetic future. Right. You'll always be under the whims of the real high evolutionary that is trying to work around the law that I just showed you guys. All right. I've been talking for a hot minute. You guys chime in.
I would just wonder, like, what's the connection between anger, aggression, and intellect? After all, we just had the buck moon in July, and that's when buck rabbits, buck deer, the males of a species start to have the rising of the sap, so to speak, with the increase of testosterone, and that connection to the antlers, and also the ram of our brain being like those horns also. So I think that there's some type of connection that the high evolutionary was onto, where he was trying to tap into this aggressive type energy that is almost
the
like
primal
an
warrior. It's usually what I try to call it. Like the primal warrior, instinct that the masculine has.
Okay, so kind of like Hercules, because I had a teacher in high school and I took mythology, and she would always get on to us. She's like, "Now, don't think that Hercules was stupid. He was strong and smart." So, maybe we're kind of stumbling on something.
Right.
There's
plenty of smart character who can also make foolish decisions.
Yeah, and Brains, is funny that you mentioned that, because I literally just put in our group chat right now. I put Rocket as a phallus, Adam Warlock, Adam Divine Masculine, Rocket, and Star-Lord both have daddy issues that they have to overcome.
Oh wow, that is pretty deep. Speaking of daddy, I would say also Rocket could maybe have a Jack Parsons Satanism kind of. You were talking about his comparison with Lucifer. So Jack Parsons probably would have been a big fan of Rocket, I'm sure. It's a kind of pun, but sort of.
Yeah. No,
and speaking of Jack, speaking of the Parsons and that satanic cult, there was a rumor that Taylor Swift is going to play the Dazzler in Deadpool 3 because she's really good friends with Ryan Reynolds, and he's just like James Gunn. He always puts his friends in his movies. So that gets us back to
good point.
Jack Parsons' wife, who is identical to Taylor Swift.
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware of that. Is that the Xena lady that was Anton LaVey's daughter?
Oh, is it Anton LaVey's? Okay, no, I got them mixed up in my head. I was thinking Parsons was...
All right, hold on. You're saying that Lucy... Wait, is Lucy Lawless... We're talking about Lucy Lawless now?
No, that's Xena, Warrior Princess. We're talking about Anton LaVey's daughter. I think her name is Xena as well.
Okay, gotcha.
I think it's X or Zena rather than Xena, which was the Warrior Princess spelling.
Okay, got it.
But she does look a lot like Taylor Swift.
Yeah,
right.
It's like creepy, actually.
Yeah. And did LaVey know Parsons? I can't remember.
Well, they were contemporaries, but I don't know if they knew each other. They were in the same circles.
Yeah. Right.
I'm not sure which of the 9 they were.
Because LaVey is a little bit younger than Parsons, because Parsons' heyday was like the 50s.
Yeah, I think that's why when I'm talking about one of them, I might say the other one, because in my mind I kind of lump all those crazy guys together because they're all just
who's
crazy people.
Who's the voice actor for the raccoon?
What's that guy's name? The guy
Bradley
from
Cooper.
Bradley Cooper, the guy from The Hangover.
Okay, because I didn't recognize his voice, and I just think it's kind of interesting how all these celebrities are finding themselves in roles as superhumans and stars. You know, like it's got that
Yeah,
same qualia to it. You know.
Yeah, it goes back to the Greek tragedies, and they knew when they would put on the mask and do these plays,
Oh yeah.
they wasn't just acting, they was channeling. And now look at all these actors, you know, they're getting in trouble for being method actors, and method acting is becoming more and more popular. Like since just The Dark Knight, with the incident with Heath Ledger, there's been so many more actors in just that short time period in this last decade that has picked up this method acting, and now you have, you know, these trends of like NPC influencers, and
Well,
like
you know,
this.
like, yeah, a lot of like method acting is necessary for very particular roles. When you've got certain iconic characters that have to follow certain formula that it just can't change because it's part of something that is source material that's popularly known from before the film is made, right? You know, the Joker is like, you've got all these different prior people that play the Joker. You've got the film The Man Who Laughs, who is also kind of part and parcel of that. I think there's even a whole homunculus thing about the Man Who Laughs film, which then puts the Joker in that homunculus category. So you're method acting because you're trying to give the better impressive performance on this take of the Joker than some of the other classics in the style of a Batman film that you're doing it as, right? The Joaquin Phoenix one being one of the most viscerally realistic and pre-Batman stories. But you have to, you know, like, you have to put yourself in a place where, like, it's like, once again, it's like, it's epigenetics, right? You know, you're changing your body language, you're laughing in ways that are not your natural laugh, and you know, like, maybe you're practicing a certain kind of eye twitch, you know, so that way you're like, ugh, you know, like, so that way you have these periods of time where you're nervous for an hour straight, like, for no reason, right? Because something's going on inside your head because you're this odd duck of sorts, right? Method acting, that's what Johnny Depp did to play Hunter S. Thompson in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, to become a mimicry, an honoring, a flattery of Hunter S. Thompson as a person. And this was something where it was method acting, because Hunter said, yeah, come hang out with me for like a few months, right? And he just lived with Hunter S. Thompson and like studied all of his tics. And Hunter was glad to have fun showing him who he was.
So do you mean he was method acting as a gonzo journalist, essentially? He was like
Yeah. Johnny Depp was channeling Hunter S. Thompson. Plain and simple.
You know, I was at trivia night. I started going to a different place for trivia on Tuesdays, and tonight Hunter S. Thompson was one of the answers that I got correct. So it's funny you would bring him up.
Synchronicities.
And the clue was the comic strip of Doonesbury was modeled after this gonzo journalist, and that answered to Hunter S. Thompson, and that was correct. So I don't even know what Doonesbury is, but there you go.
I know Doonesbury. I didn't know it was associated with gonzo journalism. I don't even really like. I don't know Doonesbury anyway, and I don't.
Well, I mean, it was modeled after
Archie
Hunter.
I don't know none of these damn things.
Well, you would have known Hagar the Horrible, and that was on there. You know his pet.
Yes, I do know Hagar the
See,
Horrible.
there you go, just dismissing it all comics, and there you know it. So what was his pet's name? Just go ahead and test you, I guess. Started with an S. Couldn't really Snurg or something like that.
Something like that. Well, guys, it's been we've been weaving this for about 2 hours, and it is a work night. So I'm gonna say that we're probably going to wrap it up right here. But I'm hoping that we gave you guys a good, juicy, coherent rundown on some of the deeper things that you are being told in some of these new generation of Hollywood movies that we may be looking forward to seeing a handful more of. I'm very interested to see what kind of things I may want to say about the next Dune film, because they seem to be doing it pretty good. I think Balderson said he finally saw Villeneuve's Dune and he liked it or something. So if I'm correct about that, forgive me if I'm misquoting Baldy's feelings about an adaptation of a book that he loves. All right, guys, why don't you do you want to let people know where they can get any of your content, if you make content, or I forget if you make content, Branch?
Well, I do have an OnlyFans. Just joking. Yeah, you can find me on YouTube as the Solomon Report. I used to produce segments with a friend. She's since retired, but we did like 60 shows together. So you can still find those on Odyssey and YouTube. And if you just want to chat or collaborate for streams or anything like that, you can find me on Telegram as The Branch. And I also use Instagram. You can find me on there as Appalachian Aesthetic.
All right. You're following me on Instagram, right, Branch?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Good.
And I did have one question that may not be long to answer. So what were the Guardian of the Galaxies guarding against? Did we ever really say? Just any threat or tyrant in general? Or?
Yeah. You see, like I was talking about this, like the galaxy seems to not have a government that unifies it at all. It just seems to be this agreeability amongst worlds in general. And there's a general sense of everything works, right? And so it's like not even like a confederacy, right? So they're the Guardians of the Galaxy based on the matter of there's no conglomerate authority that doesn't like what they're doing, kind of thing. Like
except for like Kree space, because they also have the Kree Scroll War happening and all that.
Yeah, exactly.
So
and as long as there's no right, and as long
I
as
didn't mean to put up
no,
a can of worms. I was just curious.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, but overall, they're guarding the galaxy from all sorts of interesting, you know, thing. Like, it's just like there's the galaxy's full of many unknowns. They're there
patriarchy.
They're there to notice things that go and slip beyond the eye of the more developed worlds. Right?
I feel you, man.
You know, like circumstances in the second Guardians of the Galaxy, they came across Ego, right? And then they realized that Ego had a nefarious plot to make all these other planets like copies of him because he's a big fucking ego, right?
Oh.
And so they uncovered this secret plot of Ego to assimilate many worlds unto himself, and by destroying all the life on them, and
breeding with the life of the earth. That's why he, you know, breeded with Star-Lord's mom to create Star-Lord, a demigod.
Oh, so it's like a panspermia kind of feel to it, huh?
Uh-huh. Yeah, precisely. And which
these movies have a deep trend in them.
That's more. That's other aspects of genetic origin stories that can be gone into perhaps on another stream. Chris, plug yourself.
Yeah. KO Cups, Cups with the K, so that's KOK. I have a YouTube channel. I'm on Telegram. I have episodes on Odyssey. You can listen to audio versions on Spotify. I do Weaving Spiders Welcome. And also Kino Cups. The frequent guest on there is the Brant. So if you want more Brant stuff, and you made it to all 60 something episodes of the Solomon Report, like, where else can I hear him? Or he's a frequent guest on my show, so he's there as well.
Thanks
for having us.
Absolutely. This was fun. And as for me, Zerilath at yahoo.com if you want to get a tarot rune reading from me, or book me for interviews, or want to get interviewed by me on my TFR radio show, or do something here. And also do me a favor, if you like heavy metal music or are just supportive of me, Zerilath Shreds is a new channel I've concocted just for my music. I've got 2 videos up now. I will catch you guys later. Thank you.